So, let's go. Number 1, the rock that bled yellow. You don't expect a robot to break something and find a secret inside, but that's exactly what happened. On May 30th, 2024, NASA's Curiosity rover was just driving. Rolling across a dried-out channel called Geddes Vallis on the side of a Martian mountain, doing the thing it does every day. And one of its wheels rolled straight over an ordinary-looking rock and cracked it open like an egg. Inside, there were crystals. Bright, vivid, almost glowing yellow. And when Curiosity pointed its chemical eye at them, the answer came back impossible. Pure sulfur. Not a compound. Not a salt. Elemental sulfur. The raw stuff sitting there in crystal form. Now here's why that should bother you. Curiosity had been driving through a region full of sulfates for months, and sulfates are normal. They're what's left behind when salty water dries up. Boring. Expected. But pure sulfur, all by itself, only forms under a very specific, very narrow set of conditions. Conditions that, as far as anyone can tell, never existed in that spot. So it shouldn't be there, and it gets worse. Because once they knew what to look for, they looked around, and the whole channel was littered with pale stones that looked exactly like the one the wheel happened to crush. A field of them. A buried field of pure yellow crystal that has no business existing. The lead scientist on the mission put it bluntly. Finding it, he said, is like finding an oasis in the desert. It shouldn't be there, so now we have to explain it. They still can't. Number 2, the spiders. Near the south pole of Mars, every spring the ground grows legs. That's not a metaphor. From orbit, you can watch them appear. Dark, branching shapes that spread across the surface like enormous black spiders, some of them stretching almost a kilometer from end to end. Scientists name them arenae-form terrain, which is just a polite way of saying spider-shaped, because nobody wanted to write the spiders in a research paper, but that's what everyone calls them. For years, the unsettling part wasn't that they were there. It was that nobody could prove how they formed. Then, in 2024, a team at NASA finally recreated them in a lab. In a chamber, cold and thin enough to fake a Martian winter. And what they confirmed is somehow creepier than the mystery. Here's how it works. Every winter, Mars grows a sheet of ice made of frozen carbon dioxide, dry ice, clear as glass. When spring sunlight comes back, it shines straight through that clear ice and heats the dark soil underneath. The bottom layer of ice doesn't melt. It skips straight to gas. And that gas has nowhere to go, so it builds and builds and pressure climbs until the ice can't hold anymore. And the ground ruptures from below, blasting out a jet of gas and dark sand that carves those legs into the dirt. So the spiders aren't drawn on the surface, they're clawed out from underneath. The planet builds up pressure all winter, and then, when the light comes back, it exhales. Number 3, the sky turned green. If you ever stand on Mars, you might look up one night and see the entire sky glowing green. On March 18th, 2024, the Perseverance rover saw it first. A soft green light spread across the whole Martian sky. And this was a first, not just for Mars, but for everything. The first aurora ever seen in visible light from the surface of another planet. Days earlier, the sun had thrown a flare and a huge cloud of charged particles out into space, and that cloud slammed into Mars, and the sky lit up. The color is the part that should give you chills. It glows at exactly the same shade of green as the auroras back home, the same oxygen, the same light. If you were standing there, you wouldn't need a camera. You'd see it with your own eyes, the rusty dark turning a sick pale green from one horizon to the other, but here's the difference, and it matters. On Earth, our auroras stay near the poles, herded into rings by our planet's magnetic field. Mars doesn't have one. Not anymore. So when that storm hit, there was nothing to corral the light, nothing to push it to the edges. The glow just spread across the entire sky at once, evenly, everywhere. It's beautiful. It's also a warning. Because a planet that lights up like that is a planet with nothing left to protect it. Hold on to that. We're coming back to it. Number 4, Mars sounds wrong. Perseverance carried the first working microphones ever to land on Mars. We finally got to hear another world. And what it heard back is quietly deeply wrong. On Earth, sound is simple. Every pitch, high or low, travels at the same speed, about 343 meters per second. A voice arrives all at once the way it left. You've never once in your life thought about it, because it has never not been true. On Mars, that breaks. The microphones prove that sound there travels at two different speeds. Higher pitched sounds move at about 250 meters per second. Lower pitched sounds lag behind at about 240. It's the thin carbon dioxide air doing it, and the gap is small, but it's real. And it means something genuinely strange. It means that if someone stood a little ways off and spoke to you, the high parts of their voice would reach you first, and the low parts would arrive a beat later. Their words would smear, desync, come apart on the way to your ears. And it's worse than that, because that same thin air swallows high tones fast. Past a few meters, the sharp sounds just vanish. So Mars isn't only out of sync, it's muffled and quiet, and getting quieter the farther anything is from you. A world where a voice falls apart before it reaches you, and then goes silent. Number 5. The dust is trying to kill you. We love to imagine walking on Mars, boots in the red sand, a flag, a footprint. A study published in early 2025 did the math on what that dust would actually do to your body, and it reads like a horror script. Start with the size. The dust on Mars is fine. We're talking particles around 3 micrometers across, roughly 25 times thinner than a human hair. That's small enough to slip right past everything your body uses to keep junk out of your lungs. You breathe it, and it goes deep, and it stays. About half of that dust is silica. On Earth, breathing silica gives miners a disease called silicosis. It scars your lungs permanently, and there is no cure. Now add perchlorates, a kind of salt that makes up as much as 1% of the soil. Perchlorates mess with your thyroid, and through it, your blood. And the safe daily dose is so tiny that a few specks of Martian dust blows right past it. Throw in traces of arsenic and chromium for flavor, and you can't keep it out. The stuff is so fine and so electrically charged that it clings to everything, your suit, your tools, your airlock, and it rides inside with you every time you come home. The first people on Mars won't be killed by some dramatic disaster. They'll be slowly poisoned by the ground itself, one quiet breath at a time. Number 6. The volcano that was hiding. We have mapped Mars for decades. Orbiters, cameras, the whole planet photographed over and over. So you'd think we'd have noticed a volcano taller than Mount Everest? We didn't. It was hiding in plain sight, in a place we'd looked at 1,000 times. In 2024, scientists announced it. A giant volcano just south of the Martian equator in a chaotic maze of canyons called Noctis Labyrinthus. From its base to its peak, it rises more than 9,000 meters, taller than Everest stands above the sea. Its base sprawls about 250 kilometers across. It is enormous, and it's sat there, unrecognized, the entire time. How do you miss something that big because Mars beat it half to death first? Over unimaginable stretches of time, the volcano was eroded and broken and worn down until it stopped looking like a volcano at all. It just blended into the wreckage around it, another ridge in a field of ridges, until someone finally looked at the pattern the right way and realized what they were staring at. And underneath it, there are hints of something else. Buried ice. A possible sheet of ancient glacier, hidden under old lava, which means warmth, once, and water in the same spot, which is exactly the recipe that makes scientists start whispering the word life. But sit with the simple part for a second. We missed a volcano bigger than the tallest mountain on Earth. So what else is down there that we still haven't seen? Number 7. It's not dead inside. For most of your life, the story about Mars was that it's a corpse, a cold, dead rock, geologically over. That story is wrong, and we found out the creepy way. NASA landed a machine called InSight on Mars, and it had one strange job: to sit perfectly still and listen for the planet shaking. And Mars shakes. Over its mission, InSight felt more than 1,000 Marsquakes, and almost all of them came from the same place, a long set of cracks called Cerberus fossae. Here's the part that matters. A lot of those quakes weren't sharp, snapping breaks. They were low, slow, and repetitive, the kind of rumble you get from one thing: magma. molten rock still moving deep under the surface right now. And below that region, there's something bigger, a vast plume of hot rock pushing up from deep inside the planet, the same kind of plume that feeds the volcanoes of Hawaii back home. It's strong enough that it has shoved the entire crust of Mars upward by more than a mile. So Mars isn't a corpse, it's a body with a pulse. Something hot is still rising inside it, still pressing up against the surface, still shaking the ground. The dead planet you grew up hearing about has been quietly twitching this whole time, and nobody can promise you it's done. Number 8, the buried scars. Mars never forgot a single time it was hit, and we just found the bruises buried deep inside the planet, 4.5 billion years old. This came from those same Marsquakes. When the ground shakes, the waves travel through the whole planet. And the way they bend and scatter tells you what they pass through, like an ultrasound for a world. And when scientists read those waves carefully, they found that Mars isn't smooth inside. It's lumpy, studded with chunks of foreign rock, some of them up to 4 kilometers wide, scattered through the deep interior like shrapnel. Those lumps are wreckage, leftovers from colossal impacts back when Mars was forming, when enormous objects smashed into the young planet so hard they melted whole regions and drove their own broken pieces deep down into the mantle, and then everything froze in place. On Earth, you'd never find this. Our planet is restless. The crust slides and recycles itself, and it grinds the old scars away over time. Mars doesn't do that. Its insides barely move. So, the violence of its birth never got erased. It just sank down and set and waited for 4.5 billion years for us to finally listen closely enough to hear it. It's a body that took the worst hits of its life at the very beginning and never once healed. Number 9. Mars is bleeding out. Up to now, this has been a tour of strange things on Mars. A field of crystal, spiders, a green sky, a hidden volcano. This is where it stops being strange and starts being a death. Because in 2025, we didn't just learn how Mars died. We caught it still dying, in the act for the first time. A NASA orbiter called Maven had been watching the top of the Martian atmosphere for years, and it finally saw the thing scientists had only ever guessed at. It's called sputtering. The sun fires a constant stream of charged particles into space, the solar wind, and those particles slam into the upper air of Mars and physically knock atoms loose, splashing them out into the void. Picture a cannonball into a pool. That, but with the planet's air. And the rate is brutal. It's happening about 4 times faster than anyone predicted, and every time the sun throws a tantrum, a flare, or a storm, it spikes harder. Mars loses the most exactly when the sun is angriest. Now go back to that green sky from earlier. Remember why it's spread everywhere. Mars has no magnetic field. Billions of years ago, its core cooled. The shield switched off, and the moment it did, the solar wind got to work. The same defenselessness that makes the sky glow is the thing peeling the planet's air away, atom by atom, and it has been for billions of years, and it has not stopped. You are watching a planet bleed out in slow motion. Number 10. Mars will kill its own moon. A dying planet, it turns out, doesn't die alone. It takes its moon down with it. Mars has 2 moons, and the bigger one is called Phobos. And Phobos orbits closer to its planet than any other moon in the entire solar system. Too close. Mars is reaching up with its gravity and slowly, patiently, dragging Phobos down, about 2 meters closer every 100 years. It doesn't sound like much, but it never stops, and the ending is already written. In 30 to 50 million years, Phobos crosses a line called the Roche limit, the point where the planet's pull becomes stronger than the moon's own grip on itself. And there, Mars simply takes it apart. Phobos gets torn into pieces, scattered into a ring of rubble circling the planet, or else the chunks rain down and hammer the surface. And it might be even uglier than that. Because Phobos isn't a solid ball of rock. It's more like a loose pile of rubble held together by almost nothing, and something that fragile may start crumbling early, shedding pieces, and breaking apart faster and harder than a solid moon ever would. Look at Phobos now, and you can already see the long grooves carved across its face. Some scientists think those are stretch marks, the first cracks of a moon that is already being pulled apart. So Mars lost its shield, then it started losing its air, and now, In the slowest, most patient way imaginable, it's going to dismantle its own moon and wear the wreckage like a ring. None of these are predictions about some other place. This is Mars, the planet right next door, the one we keep saying we want to live on. A world that shows you exactly what happens when a planet loses the things that keep it alive. And the most disturbing part isn't any single thing on this list. It's that every warning here is just sitting there, in the open, waiting for the next set of eyes that knows how to read it.